So to all those people that are listening, welcome to the Live Better Now podcast. My guest today, Jordan Ferrone. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, that works.
Close enough. Jordan Ferrone, he takes ice baths every once in a while, and I'm being facetious. And he has 1 million on TikTok, 314,000 followers on Instagram. If you go to his page, you're just going to notice it's just a bunch of reels of this guy jumping in an ice bath. And, you know, if you rewind a couple months, I'm looking down here, this guy's taking ice baths in what has to be 0 degree weather. I mean, there's ice everywhere. This ice plunge is literally full of ice. So, you know, as someone who is all into, I'm going to call it biohacking. And a lot of people take offense to that. It's not biohacking. It's just, you know, it's just cold exposure. But, you know, obviously the cold plunge has gained a lot of steam. It's extremely mainstream these days. You know, you've seen Plunge on Shark Tank. You've seen Wim Hof all over the internet. There's a ton of other people who are just, you know, screaming and raving about the cold plunge. As someone who does a cold plunge almost every single day at my gym, thankfully, my gym, Lifetime Fitness, has a cold plunge. It only stays at like 52 to 55 degrees, so not cold enough, but we're still getting that cold exposure, and I'm still testing my mental state. You know, and I want to talk to you not only about the physical benefits, I want to speak more about the mental benefits. But tell us a little bit more about yourself, Jordan. Tell us why you're doing these ice baths every single day, documenting on Instagram. Obviously, it's getting a ton of attention, amazing engagement. Congratulations. But tell us a little bit more about like why this is happening and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man. It means the world to me. And it's crazy, right? Like you know what? I have no idea, you know, why my videos have gained so much traction. I've one thing for sure is I've been super consistent, not only with getting in an ice bath every day, but I've been consistent with posting. So that definitely helps. But yeah, man, it's been quite the evolution. I started cold exposure probably, you know, close to 5 years ago when I discovered Wim Hof, when he kind of, you know, became a little bit more mainstream with his story. Like I think most people who, you know, kind of practice cold exposure have at least found out about Wim that way. And it wasn't something I was ever doing consistently. Like I would hop in a cold shower, never an ice bath, just a cold shower, whenever I felt like it. Most times it was after the gym, but I was never, you know, super consistent with it. And it was more so just to kind of, you know, change my mindset. I know you use the term biohacking, but, you know, I wasn't really happy or satisfied with more so the way I was feeling in my life. Like I have, you know, I have a pretty good life now, you know, to be honest. It wasn't always that way, but, you know, I've got a great family, had a great career, you know, live in a nice house. And so, you know, to the outside world, it would appear that, you know, everything is kind of in order, but, you know, in my mind, things weren't that way. And so, that's kind of my introduction to cold exposure. Long story long is just, I wanted to really, you know, change the way I was feeling. And I enjoyed it. I got a lot of enjoyment out of it. And it wasn't until December of last year, so December of 22, that I kind of, you know, pulled the trigger on going out and buying my first ice bath. It wasn't anything special, just a, you know, run-of-the-mill stock tank from Tractor Supply, but it got the job done. And so, you know, once I hopped in that first time, I was kind of hooked. I had no intention on going as long as I have or it gaining the traction and the popularity that it has, but it is what it is, and, you know, here we are today.
Why do you think it's gained so much traction and popularity?
To be honest, I don't know. You know, I've asked myself, you know, that question many times over. Obviously, people are drawn to this, you know, motivational aspect that I've incorporated into my videos. But I think that a lot of stars have aligned for me. Like, it's not necessarily that, you know, what I'm doing is novel. I'm not the first person to ever get in an ice bath. I'm not the first person to ever, you know, say something inspiring or motivational in a short form video. But I think it's just all of the things combined. Like you said, like I was getting out there in, you know, minus 30, minus 40 degrees Celsius weather. So, you know, that in itself just visually is fairly daunting and obviously
that's everyone's first.
Yeah, that'll draw people in to at least watch the first couple seconds of your video to see what this guy's all about. And so, yeah, I mean, sure, I'm very lucky in that sense where I live, that Mother Nature has kind of played in my favor to you know, lend itself well to cold exposure where I live. Other than that, I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess, people are just kind of gravitating to the things that I'm saying. I don't think I'm doing anything special or extraordinary, but like I said, I just, it just kind of happened, and I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Obviously there's a ton of, actually, no, let me take a half a step back. I wouldn't say there's a ton of research on cold plunges and the short-term and long-term benefits. I would not be surprised, and I think we would all be naive to think that cold plunge is, the savior of all mental health challenges and inflammation, and it's, the secret to recovery. And I wouldn't be surprised if 20, 30, 40 years from now, when research actually does come out, extended research, that, we all look like idiots. From firsthand, Buddha says it great. Don't listen to what I say, experience what I do, and then, see it for yourself. I do cold plunges because when I get out of a cold plunge for 3 minutes, I feel freaking amazing. I feel lit. Like, I feel like there is like espresso just running through the blood in my veins. And then also, as far as just like it being a mental test and mental challenge, when I have been going in the cold plunge consistently, when I walk up to that plunge and it's, 48 to 50 degrees, I say that, listen, this is nothing. This is nothing. I own this shit. I own this shit. And I feel like that carries into other aspects of my life. So I've seen a ton of short-term benefits to it. I would love to hear what some of your feedback on how you felt differently, mentally, have you felt differently, and some of the good and some of the bad.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you've seen any of my content, I stray away from actually talking about the benefits of cold exposure itself. I would rarely would you find a video of me actually trying to preach that cold exposure is something that everybody should be doing. And I would follow the exact same message that you said, is if you're interested in it, the best way to learn about it is just to experience it yourself. And so, yeah, it's had a tremendous amount of benefits for me personally, but my journey is going to be a lot different than anybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
It helped me out of a dark place, and that's not to say that it's the be all and end all of mental health, and it's a replacement for for therapy or any of those other means, because it isn't. I mean, all of those things are very beneficial if you're someone who struggles with mental illness. So for me, it was just a way that I chose to cope with some of the things that were going on in my life. And yeah, I mean, it's had a tremendous benefit mentally for me. Physically, sure, I think there's been some improvements there as well, but I haven't been to the doctor. I haven't had any, blood tests to really quantify those things either. So, I don't feel educated enough to actually talk about the physical benefits. But if you look, back to day one, my physical appearance is a little bit different than what it is today. But again, I can't attribute that all to cold exposure. What I can say is that certainly, like you said, getting in there every single day has stacked up a bunch of confidence within myself and discipline that has bled over into other areas of my life. So going to the gym feels a hell of a lot easier than it did, 4 months ago prior to me starting. And when I start my day with a cold plunge, everything else just feels incredibly easier.
Absolutely. Now, that confidence that you talk about, does that carry with you? And do you bring that to the first tee when you play golf? I'm looking at your Instagram right now, and I see a couple Tiger Woods content, and that really caught my eye. I got some cool, sports cards on there, which I love. Huge Tiger Woods fan.
Oh man,
huge. I named my dog after Tiger Woods. Huge Tiger Woods.
Oh man, we're kindred spirits for sure.
But no, I really wanted to get you on the podcast just to have someone who, and please don't take offense to this, but like an average Joe talking about the cold plunge, because
dude, I'm a nobody, man. I'm a nobody, and that goes back to your first question, like, why the hell do I deserve the attention that I've gotten, posting my content over the last 4 months? I haven't been on the set of Big Brother, but for some reason, people have kind of gravitated to my message. So you're absolutely right, and I take zero offense to that. I'm just an everyday guy.
And it's all those people out there that don't have access to a cold plunge. You can get pretty much the same benefits from just taking a cold shower, right?
100%.
Right? You agree, Jordan? What do you think?
Absolutely. And to be honest, I find cold showers actually more difficult than a cold plunge. And that might seem crazy, especially coming from someone who's been doing it in, 1 degree Celsius water, or, minus 30 degree, Celsius temperatures outside. But there's no escaping cold water that's running all over your body. And it's daunting, especially, you know, when it's in your own bathroom. It's like something that you almost don't even want to go in that room, just because you know what's going to happen when you go in there. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough test mentally, whether you're trying to totally submerge yourself in an ice bath, cold plunge, or a cold shower. And, none of those things are easy. And so if you don't have access, to a cold plunge, and I know there's a lot of sophisticated pieces of equipment out there that, cost thousands of dollars. A cold shower, if you're interested in getting into cold exposure, is how I started. And, it's how anybody can start. And it's a very, very practical way to do it.
Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. A lot of people are like, oh, do I start with the cold? Do I do hot? Then I do cold. How long do I stay in? And when people ask me questions like this, my answer is always just do it. Think less and do more. It does not matter. To all you people that are listening and you're trying to get exactly, the amount of time you need to be under the cold shower. And if you should, no. Stop thinking, walk into your shower, turn it on cold water, and stand under there for 15 seconds. Okay. Then tomorrow, do it for 20, so on and so forth. Right. So like, a lot of people, they try to think too much. A lot of people, they think too much, and they just need people that want to lose weight. Hey, Zach, what type of cardio should I do? I say, tie your shoes and walk out the door. Don't come back for 30 minutes. I mean, that's how I've gotten a little bit of my success is, I try to write a book. I didn't like hire an author coach, and I didn't know, let me just freaking write a book. Let me just apply for Big Brother. It is what it is. But what is the goal with your socials now that you're at day 171? And, a lot of these videos, 25,000 likes, 23,000 likes, 31,000 likes. You're just going to keep this going. And, because personally, as like a fan, as someone who like follows you now, and as someone who's going to continue to watch your stuff, like you can't stop now, dude.
Yeah, no, I can't stop now. We've come too far. We're almost halfway, basically at the peak of the mountain, and starting our descent down to 365 days. So, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's kind of in the, in the mirror right now. And that's what I'm looking at, trying to get to 365 days. But the goal for me is never really, a time limit in the water, or doing it for a certain amount of days. The goal for me is to inspire and motivate as many people as I can. And so, whatever form that is, that's kind of, the mission. I want to leave a legacy for my kids, most importantly, but for myself, something that I can look back on and be happy with. And I know, a lot of folks who kind of are into the, self-improvement game. It's tough to kind of be happy with where you're at. And so, I don't know if I'm going to actually, find joy in getting to 365, but, it's something that I'm striving towards. And I really don't know how this thing ends. To be honest with you, I've thought about it countless times. Like, how does this really end? And once I start thinking too far down the road, I almost get into this mind state where I want to just talk myself out of it and just say, well, why don't we just wrap it up here? And so I've kind of taken this approach as just one day at a time. Let's do it again tomorrow, and we'll reassess and we'll see where we're at.
And, the perfect closure, because at some point this thing needs closure, right? It's, you can't be, unless, you're sitting at 148 years old and you're the oldest living person on earth, right? And there's really no closure. And it's like, hey, look, if you haven't been taking a cold plunge by now, just scroll through my Instagram for the last 90 something years and you'll see that, this is working. But, just my feedback, in my opinion, it's only worth 2 cents to you. And now that inflation, maybe it's worth 3, but I think the closure, the exit strategy, the ribbon that's going to be tied around this present is going to come organically. And like, you just keep going in every single day, keep busting out those videos, and eventually, you'll gain some clarity on like where you want to take this thing. But as someone who is as obsessed with personal growth as I am, like yourself, what has been the biggest perspective or mindset shift that's led to a lot of your success or happiness or joy or peace in your mind? Is there one that stands out more than the other?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've thought about this a lot, and I think I've said it on maybe a couple other podcasts that I've been on. But the biggest revelation and the one that's kind of stuck with me the most is that we are not the things that we think about. We are not our thoughts, and I've been in that trap so long, and kind of been sucked up by that mentality that whatever I think is the gospel. It has to be because it's coming from my brain, but your brain can also just be another organ in your body, just like your heart is. And so you can let it think the things that it wants to think, but that doesn't necessarily have to align with your soul and your purpose in the actions that you take. And so the things that you think about, even though they are occurring in your body and in your mind, they don't have to affect the way you execute and operate on a day-to-day basis. And that's really, kind of been the biggest mindset shift that I've noticed over doing this for the last 170 plus days.
Was there a book or video that introduced you to this concept?
Yeah, The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. If you haven't read it, I would certainly recommend it. But when I read it the first time, I didn't get it. Like, I was like, what is this guy talking about? He's talking about like, our brains are like two parts. There's an elephant and there's a rider on the elephant. And who are we? Do we control the elephant or does the elephant control us? And it really like put my mind in this pretzel. Like, what is this guy on? Like, what is he talking about? But it was super interesting to read. And even to the end of the book, I kind of got the concept, but I never really fully understand something until I actually practice it. And when I got in that ice bath for the first time, it was incredibly scary. I didn't want to do it. And going into day 2, you start thinking about those things. Like, what are you doing? Like, how much is enough? Are you really going to go on with this? And these thoughts are just playing over in your mind. And then you do it anyway. And you get out and you're like, I'm not that person that was thinking those things. I could still do it even though I was thinking that I shouldn't, or I was trying to talk myself out of it. And so, yeah, I mean, that feeling is exhilarating. And, the thought that comes into my mind when I get out is like, you're a bad man. And I'm not the person who, even this morning, when I'm setting up the video and I'm looking, even though it's nice outside compared to what it was when I started this thing, it's like, man, I just don't want to do this. But that voice has just become exponentially quieter, over the last, 100 plus days of doing this. And so I'm fairly in tune with, I'm going to think certain things, but that doesn't necessarily have to align with, my behavior.
And you can also change those thoughts. Yeah, you can acknowledge that thought and you can think completely different because you are not your thoughts. You're the awareness of your thoughts, right? And I learned that exact same concept from 2 books. It was A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and then the other one was Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. 2 amazing books that I've read multiple times. This concept is it's consciousness. It's being aware of your thoughts. And, a lot of the times we go into positive feedback loops or negative feedback loops or of our thought patterns. And, it's hard to break these negative thought patterns. But the first thing, and I think the foundation of breaking a negative thought pattern is being aware of it in the first place. Because if we're not aware of it, we start identifying with our negative thought pattern and XYZ. So, that was a very, very, I'm glad you brought that up. It's something I talk about a lot, that consciousness. So last thing before we wrap up here, has Jared Goff reached out to you yet? Has anyone from the Detroit Lions said, hey, man, love that you're repping the team?
No, man, I'm still waiting for that phone call. I reached out to a couple players and haven't got anything back, but Juju Smith-Schuster is interested in my videos and in doing a cold plunge. So even though the Lions, players themselves haven't reached out, we've got some NFL players in our corner. So right. We'll see what happens.
Hey, Detroit Lions, if you're listening,
I'm gonna jump ship. I might be a Patriots fan real soon, so you guys better leave me.
No. We're gonna edit that out. Guys. If anyone from the Detroit Lions is listening, if for some reason one of you guys are listening, at least get this guy some free season tickets, right?
I'd appreciate it. I mean, at least the Thanksgiving game, right? I mean, at the bare minimum, let's get a Thanksgiving game in.
But you gotta watch the game while you're in a cold plunge.
Oh,
it's only right. It's only right.
It's only
guys,
right.
To all the people that are listening on Audible, Spotify, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, maybe you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to drop a link to Jordan's Instagram in the podcast notes below. If you haven't already left an honest review, you can scroll down right now, leave us an honest review. We recommend 5 stars. Jordan, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks.